Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
This is really a big, important show right now for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be talking to Peter Porcaro, who is really an expert in something that's really hitting the airwaves everywhere. It's called medical marijuana. And I welcome you to the show, Peter.
Thank you.
You know, Peter, I don't know. I didn't really know about medical marijuana until maybe a year or two ago, and I'm sure that you did. This is, I guess, as an expert, were you curious about it? Because that's not what you normally do. What do we call you? A personal injury attorney, really?
Yeah, I am a personal injury attorney. I got interested in medical cannabis several years ago. As most people know, it was on the ballot as a state constitutional amendment in 2014. I was involved in the political campaign in 14 when it failed, and then in 16 when we ultimately passed it. And I saw it as something that would be a helpful thing to many, many people with a lot of different medical conditions, and certainly something that is less detrimental and less risky than a lot of other products that are already on the market. And
so are you being disappointed, or are you finding this to become even more than you had envisioned?
Well, that's a loaded question. I'm a little bit disappointed with how the state has rolled out medical cannabis here in Florida. But from what I hear on the street, and when I'm referring to the street, I'm referring to within the medical community, the doctors who are doing this are getting fantastic results with their patients. So that part of it is very good.
Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm putting you on, you're now going to be on Facebook Live. So we're now starting this, and I'm just going to hold this camera up to you, and that's what you're going to do, okay? So we'll just keep that on. But it is a radio show, but this is something extra we just decided to do.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to be doing, you're going to be a guest at our Cure Symposium with Dr. Marcy Merson. And she is really an amazing physician. And when you get finished talking with her, she doesn't just do medical marijuana, as you probably know, and that's all she does. That's a minimal part of getting rid of people's pain. So I was impressed with her. But, when someone says, well, you're a lawyer for medical marijuana, it's like, well, what are you doing? Are you going to be able to make new laws, or what do you want to happen with this?
Well, that's a really tough question, Anita, but what I want to happen is for this market to open up so that patients have even more access than they have now. The state has been very slow to administrate medical cannabis. There are upwards of 50,000 people waiting to hear back from the state so that they could get their proper credentials. These are people who have already been certified by doctors. The state has been dragging its feet to put third parties in place to help with the administrative process. And in my opinion, the limited amount of licenses that the market has from an entrepreneurial perspective is going to keep prices high in the market.
I was going to ask you that. When let's say you're on Medicare and you go to someone like Dr. Merson, it's paid for by Medicare just as all other medication is?
It is not. It is a cash service.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The doctors can bill a health insurance company or Medicare for their visit, just like you could traditionally for a doctor's visit. But the cannabis product as a medication is not covered by Medicare.
So this is like a drug that you're going to a pharmacy to pay for.
Exactly. And in this particular case, you're paying for this particular product out of your pocket without any insurance company helping you with that.
Just going to ask you, so the HMOs are not including this?
They are not. They're not.
When you think about it, we know the opioid and what we're going through, you'd think that this would be the best thing that happens, right?
You would think. There's a lot of data on cannabis that's already out there. For example, California has had medical cannabis since 1996. We're talking about a greater than 20-year span. The states where people have reasonable access to medical cannabis have lower rates of opioid-related problems in all kinds, not just overdoses, but illegal overdoses, prescription abuses, et cetera, et cetera. The states that have legitimate access to medical cannabis have fewer of those problems. And those are big problems here in South Florida, especially in South Palm Beach County.
So what are you going to do as an attorney to help with this?
Well, that's a loaded question. What I'm doing right now as an attorney to help with this is assisting doctors who are implementing medical cannabis programs within their practice to teach them what they need to do to be in strict compliance with the fairly complicated medical cannabis statute that we have here in Florida right now.
So that's a very important thing that you just said. So people can't just do this casually. They really, are there a lot of attorneys like you doing this?
There are a small handful of attorneys in the state that are doing this. But when there's not a particular subset of practice that's completely devoted to medical cannabis. There's just not enough business to do just that right now. I hope that it will grow into that eventually as more people get involved in this industry. But we're not quite there yet.
Okay, so let's just get back to people who say they're afraid about about marijuana because, we don't want it recreational. And why don't you explain really the basic difference in the medical marijuana compared to the recreational marijuana?
It's a political difference, if you want to know the truth. There are a half a dozen, I think maybe 8 states in the country that have recreational and medicinal programs in effect. And what we've observed in those particular states is that when a state rolls out with recreational marijuana, that their medical marijuana program becomes a little less profoundly significant, if you will. And the reason is because people don't have to go to the doctor to get a product to treat themselves. They could, just like when you walk into CVS, you can get aspirin over the counter. In a recreational market, that's essentially what's happening with cannabis, in addition to people being able to get it for recreational purposes.
Have you ever taken any of this?
Those records are permanently sealed.
No, okay, because, it'd be interesting. I don't smoke, drink, I don't do any of that, but someone said to me, as a matter of fact, I was thinking of you. I was getting a massage, and I've been getting this wonderful woman for 10 years. And I hurt my arm the other day, and I was telling her about you and about medical marijuana. She said, well, why don't you try some? She said it might relieve your pain. And I hadn't really thought about that. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that if that's something you're interested in doing, then the proper protocol to do that would be to find a local doctor. Go to Dr. Merson, exactly, or any of the other very competent medical providers here in the community that are certified to do medical cannabis. And there's a list that you could find of all of them on the Department of Health's website. As a matter of fact, there's about 1,200 doctors plus in the state that are certified to do this. Your own doctor may already be doing it. You call them up, you make an appointment, you tell the doctor your symptoms, and if he feels that you have a qualifying condition pursuant to the statute, he'll give you a certification. And then you would jump through some hoops with the state to get proper credentialing, and then ultimately you would be able to go to one of the dispensing organizations and get the medical cannabis that the doctor recommended you get.
I see. So that's the thing. That's what you were talking about, that interim problem. You just like if I have a pain and I want to go to Dr. Merson, she can take care of the pain. But if I want for her to include medical marijuana, it's going to require something on my part.
Exactly. You, from a patient perspective, you have to meet the qualifying requirements to get it. It's not as though every patient is a qualified candidate for medical cannabis. Just like with any other medical treatment, not everyone's a candidate for it. You have to meet certain requirements to be a candidate for it. If you meet those requirements based on the doctor's opinion, the doctor inputs your data into a state system. You pay a nominal fee to the state of Florida, and in exchange, they send you some credentials that give you some security, and also give you the right to go to a dispensing organization and get medical cannabis.
So it isn't so simple, and that's why you've gotten so involved, I think, to ease this up. So if people came to you for advice, it would be really if they want to now start maybe a company. Is that what you would be doing?
To some extent. Right now, I'm really focused on helping doctors, honestly. I have a limited ability to help patients, although I can certainly refer them to the very good doctors in the community that are doing medical cannabis. And I'm also situated to help businesses if they're looking to get involved. But there's a very limited opportunity to do that in the state right now.
Why is that?
Because the state has limited who can be involved in this, who can play in this industry by limiting the number of licenses that are available.
My guest is Peter Porcaro, P-O-R-C-A-R-O, Porcaro, and he is an attorney in Delray Beach. And if you have, I'm just going to say this, so besides medical marijuana, he is a personal injury attorney. He's also an auto accident attorney, besides now specializing in medical marijuana. Let me just give you a phone number for him if you're interested in talking to him. His phone is 561-450-9355. 561-450-9355. And we do have someone watching now. Gary Polk is watching you. And so we're on Facebook Live. But I'd like to continue. Well, let's back up a minute. I asked you this when I first met you. Why, of all the kinds of attorneys that there are when you first went to law school, what made you want to be a personal injury attorney?
I don't know if there was anything particular about law school that made me want to be a personal injury attorney.
Are you sorry you did?
I'm not sorry that I did. I do get a lot of rewards helping people after they've been in an accident. I kind of fell into it to some extent. The firms that hire a lot of kids right out of law school are the same firms that represent insurance companies. And so I started out defending personal injury cases on behalf of insurance companies. And then I eventually transitioned over because I liked helping people more than I liked helping insurance companies.
Well, that's a good point. But so, it's funny. Your profession has had a reputation, unfortunately, of being ambulance chasers. Isn't that what they say? Why do you think that's true? I mean, that's not who you are because you have a great reputation, but what happens?
Well, thank you for saying that, and I appreciate it. I think that there's a lot of competition in the personal injury space that perhaps drives some of that behavior. I don't necessarily think that attorneys are looking to get out to do that type of business initially, but for different reasons, perhaps maybe greed, they get pushed to resort to tactics like that. We don't do that at Porcaro Law.
No, of course you don't.
But
I wouldn't have you on the radio show if you did, so I know that.
I certainly know and understand what you're talking about.
Right.
The people that are out there doing that are my competitors.
So, but let's talk about someone listening who's just now. I mean, they have an accident. So they have. Let's go back to the car accidents. That's so common here in South Florida. Why? They have an insurance company. Why do they hire you? I mean, I don't understand the difference. And they have an accident, and they call the insurance company.
Well, the insurance company's not looking out for them. The insurance company is looking out for their company. Their insurance company is looking out for their bottom line. Just remember the basic idea behind how insurance companies make money, and it's by selling policies and denying and delaying claims so that they get to keep your premiums instead of paying them out on claims. And that's the reason that injured parties need advocates on their behalf when dealing with insurance companies. Just as there are a group of personal injury attorneys out there who may be hyper aggressive for how they procure their business, the insurance companies on the other side are just as aggressive in trying to minimize their financial exposure and claims. And that's why there's a need for attorneys in this space.
So you're really the advocate for that person. So let's say they go to their insurance company, and their insurance company gives them something, but it's not what they expected. Could they then come to you afterwards? Because they shouldn't sign something, right? Don't you explain how that works?
That's true. If you're dealing with an insurance company on your own and you work out a deal with them and you sign your autograph on the release, that's unfortunately the end of the case, and you can't open it up. And a lot of times, insurance companies will dangle a little bit of money in front of people who were injured in accidents and hope that they sign relatively quickly before their case really develops. And that's a tactic that we see insurance companies take all the time. And if a person is not represented by an attorney in that context, they might not know any better. And that's what the insurance company is hoping, An insurance company would love to give somebody who's in a car accident $1,000 for their signature on a release, and then the case goes nowhere after that. It doesn't matter how injured that party was from the accident. After they sign their name on the release, it's over.
But if they're your insurance company, will they still, let's say you say, I don't want to do that, I'm going to go to a lawyer, will they still keep you as a person that they insure?
Of course they will. And the law doesn't necessarily give them the right to take action against a claimant or an insured unless there was some type of at-fault associated with the claim. So people who don't cause the accidents are not necessarily exposed to paying higher premiums in the future because they made a claim. The person that caused the accident's premiums should go up.
Okay, but now, so let's get off of the auto. Let's go back to personal injury. Let's go into nursing homes, into places where there are things happening. Are you handling cases like that?
Yes, we've handled nursing home cases at Porcaro Law Group, premises liability cases such as slip and falls at Publix, Walmart, for a variety of reasons, product liability cases. In fact, I recently resolved a case involving a defective walker.
A defective walker.
A defective walker.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a prominent walker manufacturer. Probably a lot of the listeners here may be using walkers. I won't mention the name over the air, but this particular walker was a standard aluminum walker, 4 legs. One of the legs collapsed, and this elderly lady went tumbling to the ground, had some very significant injuries. So we were able to make a claim against the manufacturer of the walker to compensate her for the injuries that the failed walker caused her. So those are things that we cover.
Never heard of that, because that's a new one.
That's a new one.
Failed walkers. But it takes, I have to assume, you have to do a lot of research because places are not going to want to pay.
No, they don't want to pay. Nobody just writes checks on a voluntary basis. That's just not how the world works. So, in that particular case, we had to research it. We had to hire an expert to see what specifically caused this walker to fail and whether it was related to the manufacturer of the product. Then we were dealing with a big multinational company who was the manufacturer of the product to resolve the case. And they ultimately hired local counsel here in Florida, and we worked it out.
I hope they changed the walker design. We hope they did.
We hope they did.
Well, we hope you charge them enough that they did. That's in the future. But let's just keep moving along with this. So you, if someone feels that something is not right, let's go into the field, since we have a lot of seniors who listen to our show, and they have had some sort of a problem with whether it's a nursing home or a rehab center or something. So they hire you. Now, is it true that you charge, or that you only charge if you win a case? How does that go? Because I've had people say, well, they don't charge anything. And I thought, how could you do that and not charge anything for all that time?
No, we charge. But the way we charge is on a contingency fee. What that means is that you don't pay me on an hourly rate out of your pocket as the case progresses. As a matter of fact, if there is no recovery in your case, you don't pay at all. And in that context, there is no fee for the services that we provide. Those situations are extremely unusual. But the way the attorney's fee works in these contingency fee cases is that the law firm becomes entitled to a percentage of the recovery. And that gets taken out of the recovery, not out of the injured party's pocket. That's how that works.
All right. And so how long have you been practicing this whole field?
Since 2006.
You're just a kid. 2006. There are so many people who complain that they have been hurt. And then, are they hurt badly enough? So I guess that's one of the decisions that you have to make before you even take a case, don't you?
Of course. And, there's minimum legal thresholds that we have to meet for claimants to be able to make a claim. For example, in a car accident case, the law says here in Florida that a claimant must have some type of permanent impairment as given by a doctor before they could be compensated for pain and suffering. So those are things that we have to be mindful as we make these claims. And ultimately, how impaired somebody is or how injured somebody is between them and their doctor. And we rely on the medical professionals to give us good opinions on that.
So you have to do a lot. It sounds like you have to do a lot of interviewing. in your profession.
There's a lot of interviewing. Yeah.
Because you have to know if people are really saying. Now tell me the difference in arbitration and going to court over something.
We don't do a lot of arbitration here in personal injury in Florida. I know in some other states they do arbitration as a way to. It's like a pseudo court. It's like court light to some extent.
Right, get rid of the case, right?
Yeah, and in a lot of different jurisdictions, it's a technique that parties use to try to get to the bottom of the matter without having to formally litigate it in the court system. We don't do a ton of that in the injury world here in Florida. I know in other areas of law that arbitration is something that's used, but typically what we do is we try to work things out with the insurance company first. And a lot of claims never become lawsuits. And I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head, but let's say 75% of claims get resolved without a lawsuit ever being filed. And then if you cannot resolve it for one reason or another, then we would litigate the case on behalf of the injured party.
Let me just tell you again, this expert, very charismatic, Peter Porcaro. It's called the Porcaro Law Firm, and he is located on Military Trail in Delray Beach. And the phone number, just write this down. Remember, this is Pencil Talk Radio, and it's 561-450-9355. 561-450-9355. Something I need to tell you is that he will be one of our featured speakers at our Cure Symposium, along with Dr. Marcy Merson, who is a physician who specializes in pain medicine and the medical marijuana. So you'll get to meet him in person, and you're really going to enjoy that. So there are a few more questions. I mean, this is really a field that I'm not very familiar with in a sense, but I know that you can really make a difference in someone's life. Now, there are people, as you said, who are seriously, you said it has to be a permanent disability. I mean, let's say someone slips and falls and they break a hip. Now, that's not permanent because can't they get it repaired and then, is that permanent?
That's certainly permanent. If someone breaks a hip, that bone, that body has sustained a permanent damage.
I see.
Whether they have to have that hip replaced, now they have a new hip. But if they have a fracture like that, it's undoubtedly permanent. You may heal and you may get better and you may get back to baseline, but there's going to be scarring, whether it's on the surface of your body or internally associated with an injury like that.
You know, that makes sense. I didn't really quite I see. It's not like they can't ever see again. They can get fixed up, but it has changed their life.
It has changed their life. It has changed their body permanently.
Okay, well, that's fair. So tell us about a case without naming any names of what can people really, someone breaks their hip and they get money for this. Are you looking at, a lot of money, or just give us a range of what happens? I usually don't talk about money, but I want people to realize how serious this is.
No, I'm glad you usually don't talk about money, and it would be, I would be doing your listeners a disservice to spout out what cases could be worth, and it wouldn't be prudent of me as an attorney to do that. Each case has its own nuances. Every person has their own medical history, and how each incident happened that caused those injuries is different. And for those reasons, it's impossible to say what somebody's broken hip might be worth without knowing how that accident happened, who caused it, what that person's medical history would be.
That's a good point, because if they've already had problems with that hip and all of a sudden it was weak. But that's the kind of investigation you have to go through.
Every single case.
In order to really be a good attorney. And I'm sure that there are a lot of attorneys who refer business to you because you have a very good reputation. And it's really important in this field because if someone has suffered this kind of injury, they're pretty much, I'll say, at half-mast. I mean, they're out of it in a way, right? So they have to have people they can count on.
Totally. They have a new additional big stress in their life. When your body's not feeling good, when you have some type of injury, sometimes these people can't work. They can't go to school. They can't function properly. They can't do activities of daily living, like going to the bathroom, like taking care of their home. Problems that they did not foresee the second before the incident happened that caused them to have an injury.
Oh, that's well put. Yeah, well, you do understand the senior market. I can see that because it really it'll make a total, you're right. They could now change their life forever.
Totally.
from that. Okay. Well, let's kind of go back to where we started with the medical marijuana, because we're so interested in that. I know of someone now who has bought a farm in Colorado, but it isn't. There's all different forms of marijuana. I'm learning. There's different parts of it, and you probably know about that.
Yeah, well, I can't speak to what your friend's doing in Colorado, but
he said it's just it's one part of it. It isn't the same kind of. It's not what they use for recreational marijuana.
Sure. Well, out in Colorado, they have recreational marijuana.
Right.
You can go to a marijuana store in Colorado and get practically anything that you could dream of or that you've seen on TV or in magazines. Here in Florida, what we have in the medicinal market, we don't have flower. So you cannot smoke cannabis here in Florida, medicinal cannabis here in Florida. You can vaporize it in the form of like an oil, like with almost akin to what an e-cigarette would be. Additionally, you could get capsules, and you can also get a sublingual tincture that goes under your tongue, which is an alcohol-based cannabis product. And they get dosed differently. But those are the types of cannabis that we have here in Florida.
And but he's bringing it in to these probably places like, I must say this too, I don't want to forget this. We're very fortunate, though, to have a major sponsor, which is Curaleaf. And they're sponsoring, thanks to you, the Cure Symposium. And we really appreciated that. Now, tell us what they do.
Curaleaf is one of the licensed dispensing organizations in the state of Florida. They produce medical cannabis here. They turn it into a usable form, and they ultimately dispense it to their patient base. And they are looking for new patients. Curaleaf is a wonderful company, and they have been in the medical cannabis arena here in Florida since it started, since it first got passed in 2014 with the low THC medical cannabis law that the legislature passed before Amendment 2 of then passed in 2016. Curaleaf does everything. They grow it, they cultivate it, they manufacture it into a consumable product, and then they dispense it.
There's so much more to talk about this, but of course we are now run out of time, Peter. I was so glad you were able to come early this morning with your busy schedule. So I hope everybody mark it on your calendar, Saturday, March the 10th, from 10 to 4 over there at FAU. And we certainly, if you want to, please make reservations. We're really getting so many RSVPs. We hope we might be standing room only at this point. Call 561-864-1101 if you want to make a reservation, or go to our website, cure-symposium.com. Thanks very much, Peter.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the Cure Symposium.